Rebecca emails, what do you say?
I'm in.
This email is from patron Alicia from Seattle. They say, I've been wondering lately whether you think that our overall mental health is worse today than it was in the past. Is our overall mental health worse today than it was in the past? I'm also wondering if capitalism might be good, bad, or neutral for our overall mental health. You've talked about our need for work-life balance, and you've talked about the need for us to push back against our employers. However, economic insecurity is also a known stressor. And so maybe in the past, there was less social isolation, but more mental health difficulties due to things like high infant mortality, famine, etc.
And war.
And war. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. End of email. What do you think, Rebecca?
So I just recently, there's a great biography of Audre Lorde out, and I continue to learn more and more about her. One of the things I didn't know is that during World War II, we had some of the highest suicide rates ever in this country. Mental health has been crappy throughout time. We are more public about what is bad about mental health. We also have 4 times the population that we had just 50 or 100 years ago. So there are more people to see that they have bad mental health. But yeah, mental health has never been great.
Yeah. So it's hard to answer these questions because of 2 things. One, what do we mean by overall mental health? That encapsulates literally everything we can think of in the DSM, and also things not, like happiness and well-being and fulfillment and whatever.
We also have nostalgia that we imagine, like this is the thing about the 50s, like, oh, everyone's happier then. It was like the lobotomy rates were insane. That was the only option, and institutionalization of women and people of color and queer people was horrible in those times. But we imagine them as this happy time.
Right. So we don't know how to define these concepts, and they're too big to define easily to research anyway. But also, we just don't have the data. We have a fair amount of data recently in the past, 20, 30 years, but even those data are not necessarily reliable regarding answering the question as to whether or not people are happy or not, or this sort of thing. So it's just hard to say. And we have a bias about things always being worse today than they were before. When you look at ancient Romans from Julius Caesar's time, 2,000 years ago, they will talk about how the current times were worse than the good old days. And the generation that Julius Caesar actually was a part of was considered to be effeminate and spoiled and disrespectful, blah, blah, blah. Kids today, it's a known thing. Clearly, we have some sort of inherent bias that I'm sure I could pontificate as to why we might have that, but it's quite possible that it's sort of in our bones. Maybe it served an evolutionary purpose, who knows? But having said that, we do have research across cultures today. You have different sorts of societies, not only when it comes to things like capitalism versus other structures, but also just different overall lifestyles, like the Seattle high-tech commuter, 1 kid, 2 dog family kind of thing versus other communities around the world that have a different general average look to it. We have studied that, and again, mixed results. It comes down to the same kind of problems. When you ask someone in Seattle, are you happy? Are you fulfilled? How's your life going? How's your mental health? And you ask someone in the middle of Poland or in the middle of Kenya, in their language, some sort of translated version of that question, can you compare those 2 average results meaningfully? We understand it's really, really hard to do that. But there does seem to be strong evidence that in our contemporary society, whether you relate it to capitalism or not, that we are more and more isolated.
Yes.
We're more and more alone and forced and self-forcing to be independent. lack of dependency, lack of connection, lack of time, and just spent in the same room with your kin. You can wake up in the morning in a haze and rush out the door, go to the office, come home 11 hours later, put food on the table, get the kids to bed, and you've had no meaningful time with your people. And it can, it's greatly associated with lower overall mental health and lower well-being, greater conflict, more drug abuse, all the things, right? So there's that. The other thing is you're comparing two things. You're comparing well-being and overall mental health with economic insecurity, right, as if they're mutually exclusive kind of a thing.
So I would say, from what I've seen, the capitalist system is horrible for mental health. People were feeling like they have to stay in jobs where they are unfulfilled, doing repetitive tasks that hurt their bodies, time coming home to their, like you mentioned, coming home to their families exhausted, working an honest day's work, not having enough money for stable housing, health insurance, never being able to take time away or vacations, not having enough time for this is really interesting. Not having enough time for hobbies or things outside of work that are fulfilling. These are all things that make people miserable.
Right. When you have a whole society, government and otherwise, oriented towards the stockholder, then you get all these factors. You not only get managers that will elevate people that sacrifice their lives and work 70 hours a week, but you also infuse in the culture values that are from the ground up, that management doesn't have to tell the laborer to work 70 hours a week, because kids are born into a system that values capital, that values keeping up with the Joneses and materialism, and devalues our lives.
And we're never
really
not connected now, so that this is the whole thing with my clients. A ton of my clients have two phones because they want to be able to turn off their work email, and the only way to do that is to have a separate phone where their work email is not on that phone. Otherwise, they would be available 24/7.
Yeah, and that's a problem. So, having said that, we have to define what capitalism is versus other forms of government or society. And within capitalism, because there's various different capitalistic societies, not only across history in the United States, but around the world, you can have a system of government and society that would be termed as capitalistic, that has pro-labor laws, that has systems in place to reduce the income disparity. The American capitalist system of 2025 is particular. There are various other ways of doing this.
There's no caps on, say, what CEOs could earn. So here in Seattle, Costco is centered here. I believe that the CEO can't earn more than 9 times what the average employee makes. Whereas in the average company in America, the CEO earns 400 times what the average employee makes. So these intense disparities cause all kinds of tensions. And what I see in my clients is, when do they get time off? What does being off the clock mean? How will it impact their career not to return an email at 9 p.m., not to be on their phone at 7 a.m. to receive an email? There is this thing that you are constantly tied to your employer.
Right.
And I should say I work for myself, and I am a victim of the same thing. I wake up some days and check my email at 7 a.m. I don't have to do that. But as an American, it's like, oh, time to check in with work. What am I doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's important for all of us, within whatever system we're living in, to evaluate our needs and be very scrutinizing about the assumptions that we're making about the priorities of life. We only have one life that we live on this planet in all likelihood. And you only get one chance at this, so don't fucking waste it.
Kirk doesn't believe in reincarnation.
There's no evidence for reincarnation. It's quite possible. It's quite possible that there's a spaghetti monster in the sky, but
Ooh,
we can't
can we
say
visit?
anything. But I'm certainly not depending on it. And even if there was reincarnation, I don't remember
I want
it.
to live the best life. I want to live this life. I mean, that's what people often say to me. Oh, it looks like you enjoy life, and I was like, you bet your fucking ass I do. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here to have a good, conscientious time.
Yeah.
And I, will probably not be able to retire till I'm like way late in the story because I prioritize having a good time. I mean, not outrageous. If you watch my life, you probably think I was the most boring person on the planet. But, there is a life-work balance, especially here in Seattle, that I'm way on the balance end.
Yeah, and I won't go into detail because I've already talked about this ad nauseum, my own work-life balance that I've been working on over the past few years. But the main barrier to work-life balance in my life has been me. Mm-hmm. And I suspect that's true for a lot of people. I guess I have the privilege of having it be me because I'm my own boss and have been for 3 decades now for the most part. And when I was at the university, I had a boss, but us professors were kind of prima donnas, so it's not really like we're an employee.
It's not boss.
Yeah, right. And eventually I was the boss, right? But I guess I had a boss. Anyway, point is that I have been working really hard on it, and it's not capitalism. I mean, I suppose internalized capitalism and materialism from my society, but I have had to work really hard against my own impulse to work to make sure that my family is able to pay their bills, to please the market. They're wanting more product, so I have to deliver, and just the enjoyment I get out of doing it. When you cobble together a career that you love, then why would you not do it, And to wake up in the morning and say, I could choose a path that I enjoy and make money versus a path that I enjoy and not make money, it's really easy to pick door number one, And what overall that would do to me is it would not get certain needs met in my life. It wasn't horrible, but because I wasn't working on a factory floor or something and being pushed to the limit of my physical abilities or something. So it wasn't horrible in that way, but it was slowly neglecting some very important areas of my life, like my personal health.
Yeah, you weren't sleeping.
My ability to just relax, to have brain space of just staring at a tree or something, hanging out with family and my wife and the dogs and playing video games, for example. There was a whole stretch there where I hadn't played a video game in a long time, which isn't like necessarily a huge need of mine, but it's a
it's
barometer.
Your leisure time. Yeah.
But it's an indication of just how
all
little
work and no play makes
Kirk a dead person eventually. Let's take a break.
Okay.
All right, we're back from the break. So this is a question, anonymous patron. She says, I wonder what you think about teacher-student relationships. I know you always say that therapists should never be friends with their clients, and I feel like a close teacher-student relationship in many ways resembles a therapeutic relationship. Do you think it's ethical for a high school teacher or a college professor to be friends with a student? Rebecca, what do you think?
I believe it is in the ethics code that you can be friends. I am friends with many of my former graduate students. If it's really a friendship, it's okay. If it progresses in any other way, the high school teachers are famous for being. I don't know if you'd count it as a friendship because there's a way in which it's really one way in high school, but they continue to be mentors over a lifetime to their students.
Right. Yeah. So we do have ethical codes that talk about dual relationships of a sort with students in the same way that we do with clients. Yes, it's not explicit saying that you can't be friends with a student as a professor in our field, but it does say that you need to be careful. You can't have sex, but you need to be careful about exploitation. And that's ambiguous, right? It's like, well, how would that play out? And I could talk for a long time about all the possibilities. But generally speaking, with thoughtfulness, you and I have been friends with students after they've been in our class.
For decades.
Not during. Because once they're, particularly after they graduate, they're colleagues. They're just like us, right? So it's not likely that exploitation or harm is going to happen. Now, it could, though,
Yeah,
So it has to just be, we just have to be thoughtful about it.
Full disclosure, some of my closest friends are former students. Like, they went into this field for a reason. I went into this field for a reason. We're now in this field that's unique. There's, I begin to, if over time, have more in common with them than lots of other people in my life.
Right. Now, high school teacher being friends with a high school student is hard to imagine being on the up and up, or hard to imagine being a genuine friendship. I suppose you could have a high school teacher that was like 20 or something, and you have a student that's 18 and about to graduate. So maybe in a situation like that.
Yeah, I would say more of a the way I've seen it work well, it's more of a lifetime mentorship role. They can always call on that person, rely on that person.
Right. And I also want to be clear that I don't know if I've ever said that therapists should never be friends with their clients the way that you're saying, Anonymous Patron. I mean, generally speaking, yes, but that's not the way that ethical decision-making is stated. We don't have rules aside from sex with clients. We have considerations, and usually, and in the situation with friendships, it is almost always the case that with proper decision-making and consultation and thoughtfulness, it's concluded that it is not helpful and potentially at risk of harming a client to be friends with a client.
And so I'll say on that one, I have no friends that are former clients.
Right. Even like I said, and you're mentioning former, because that's also a different thing. If say you had a client for a couple months and then 15 years later you run into them at a conference and you become friends, is that at risk of harming the client? We can have a conversation about that.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say in licensed mental health counselor, I think you're not supposed to have any contact for 5 years. But I find that the power dynamics are in a way that I don't think I could ever be friends.
Yeah, generally speaking.
And they wouldn't like me if they really saw all of me.
I don't know.
They see me in this very specific way. But so I'm trying to think. So I had some high school teachers that I would have loved to be friends with. Yeah, and I can think of some specific, it didn't happen to me, but it happened to some people I know that they were in contact with those folks for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break. We get back, another email. What do you say?
Yes.
All right, this next email, Anonymous Patron from Syracuse. She says, "Hi, Kirk and Rebecca. My mom has borderline personality disorder and a history of substance abuse."
Hold on 1 second.
What?
You got to stop shaking your leg.
Oh.
Thank you.
Oh, your mic is moving?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Kirk and Rebecca. My mom has borderline personality disorder and a history of substance abuse, mainly opiates, now in remission. Okay. Mom, borderline, history of substance abuse. While she's not currently addicted to alcohol, she still drinks occasionally, and alcohol negatively affects her. Even one drink can trigger emotional instability, intense black and white thinking, and higher than usual reactivity. In the past, her drinking has led to traumatic incidents for me and my family. She knows that I prefer that she never drank. I've voiced this to her a few times before. The last time I directly asked her not to drink was when she was going to attend an annual public holiday event hosted by my small business. She became angry with me and decided, so in response to her saying, "Hey, please don't drink at this thing at my small business," she became angry with me and decided to no longer attend and claimed that she was going to drink anyway. Or she wasn't going to drink anyways. I wasn't going to drink anyway, so I don't know why you're telling me not to drink. And by the way, just chiming in here, this is classic non-recovery ways of thinking, because if you have gone further down the road of recovery and someone says this to you, it's totally normal to be insulted or hurt or something. But
you
anyone
understand
that's
that your behavior has negatively impacted people.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you're going to be very thankful that your loved ones are thinking about it and feel safe enough to tell you that and are a part of your sober efforts. You know what I mean? So although you're saying that she's not currently addicted to alcohol, she still drinks occasionally, she's still in the midst of her alcoholism is the thing. So you're going up against a disease. You're going up against some pretty difficult things. And if you add borderline to the issue.
Right. And most of all, admitting that you could cause someone a really bad time with your behavior is really hard to admit.
Yeah. So going on, I'm getting married in September. I want to ask her not to drink at all during the wedding. I'm positive she'll interpret it as judgment on her, and I'm positive that she will become defensive and maybe even instigate conflict with me and other family members. She is in therapy. I wish I could contact her therapist to broach this topic for me.
You can ask for a family session.
Yeah. Is that a thing? Any
Yes.
advice on approaching my mom about this? Thank you so much for everything. What do you think?
So weddings, deaths, births, these events bring everything into a clearer focus. I guarantee you, if you say nothing, your mother will drink at your wedding and ruin it, which is a possibility. Side note, this isn't even a question. I would have someone at the wedding who is in charge of monitoring your mother's behavior. I would set limits and say, if any of these following things happen, you will be ushered away. This is my very special day. Because there is a chance that she will do something really intense, and it will forever mark that day as the time your mom did X. She's unaware of her behavior. She can't stop her behavior. That's not your fault. But does it sound like I'm talking from experience? Yeah, these situations, especially with family, are really, really hard.
Yeah.
You may hurt her feelings, and that's okay. I would 100% request a family session with her therapist. That is not unheard of as you head into a wedding with someone who both has, we used to call it dual diagnosis, chemical addiction issues and a mental health issue.
Yeah. So this is not my therapist advice. This is just my human advice.
This is Kirk's advice.
This is my citizen advice.
Not Dr. Kirk. This is just Kirk's.
Yeah. It is that when I have run into situations like this, I consider it a blessing for someone to blow out before the event.
Yes.
So if they can't fucking handle a conversation about it,
they can't
on
come.
my special day for my fucking wedding, and they can't accommodate and not have a fucking drink, and they can't agree to not make it all about them, if they can't even fucking talk about it, then fuck you.
You can't come.
I hope you blow out. I hope we get into a fight before the event. I hope I disinvite you. I hope you don't come because fuck you.
And maybe that's part of the dynamic, is that like the mother knows she can't handle it, and so sabotage before the wedding in order to make sure that she's not invited. She might hold that over you for the rest of your life, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking about at my wedding, like one friend that didn't RSVP showed up and wanted to process with me all of their traumas. And I had to, I gave them about 5 minutes, and I told them that they didn't RSVP, which they argued with me about. And then I told them, this is my special day and I can't process with you right now. And they were so offended. And I think that was the last time we connected. But I was like, not today. Really, give me one. And if you know my history, give me one day in my life that is not about me taking care of someone else. Please, God.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a litmus test.
Yeah. Can you hold it together for your friends and your family and celebrate them?
Even if someone came to me and I felt like they were being unfair, I would hold it together. Even if I felt like they were wrong, I would say, well, there are bigger priorities here, larger, broader priorities here, which is they have a big event and they're stressed out, and maybe I'm getting some of the, they're taking it out on me or something like that. But I love them and I want to be there for them, and this is a big deal for this event, so I'm going to hold my shit together. And maybe 6 months later, I'll have a conversation with them about it. But, everything doesn't have to be constantly fair for you. You know what I mean? And if your mom can't acknowledge just basic fucking fairness, if you just ask the question of like,
right. Can you not
I
drink?
just would I want to go to my family, my mother, by the way, I want to go to my mom and say, can you please not ruin the wedding? And if she refuses to have a conversation about that, then we are talking about an extremely low bar for her to gain entry to your wedding.
Well, right. And I'm thinking about being a parent of now an adult child, and they will say to me, like, please don't talk about X in front of Y. Please don't ever bring up X. And it's like, okay, I won't. I cherish my relationship with you, and I understand that X makes you extremely uncomfortable. I am actually the adult and the parent in this situation that can hold that so that you feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. And this is just like on the day-to-day. Like,
not at a wedding. Yeah.
No.
Here's
certain topics are verboten, and that's okay.
Yeah, like ruining my wedding. Going on. Annual anonymous patron and YouTube member, she says, I'm trying to have a career change into therapy, but have no undergraduate psychology degree.
Got to get those credits.
For the kind of therapist I want to be, I surmised marriage and family therapy might be the thing to do. What do you look for in a marriage and family therapy program beyond accreditation? What kinds of questions would you ask a program? Thank you for all that you do, giving us access to psychology topics. I can say definitely I would not have taken this leap if it weren't for your podcast. End of email. Rebecca, what questions would you ask?
Well, first off, I want to answer that there are prereqs to get into this program, which means that you have to have taken certain courses. And so some people, their education means going back to a community college and getting, I think it's abnormal psych.
And personality usually.
Personality. Is it child development too, or do you take?
I can't remember.
Okay.
They change.
Yeah. So there's certain classes that you have to have had. So just be prepared.
Depending on the program.
Accreditation is incredibly important. I can't even underscore that. It means fewer hours when you graduate to get your license in a state. And there are now these pacts which allow you to be licensed in several states at once. They're doing social workers, licensed mental health counselors are next, which will make moving, like there's whole states I can't move to. I can't really move to California. I have had friends that ended up in states where their license meant nothing. So this is just important, especially if you're used to moving around a lot. This is not a great career to move around a lot.
Yeah.
On top of that, what kind of philosophy does the program have? So we went to a program that was very focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. That meant that certain things were talked about more than, say, my psychoanalytic program that was very focused on both group skills and attachment disruptions, which meant we talked about the mother-child relationship a lot. I wasn't prepared for what that meant, having come from very diversity, equity, and inclusion styled Seattle. I was shocked at all the things that didn't get talked about. There's also, I don't know, so like I saw a presenter from Naropa at the conference. There was a very Buddhist aspect to what they provided in the session. So different programs really have different focuses, and we'll advertise that. Do your research, because I ended up at a psychoanalytic program, and although I got a great education, I was kind of miserable for 2 years.
Yeah, but it's just so hard, even in today's internet world, to figure things out because you don't know what you want, you don't know what you should be asking, and you aren't guaranteed to be given a straight answer by the program.
Yeah, and don't depend on a certain professor, because the chances are by the time you get there, that professor won't be teaching there anymore.
Okay. Yeah. So I was trying to think what questions I would ask. I would definitely ask the program a lot of questions, but I would also ask to be in contact with current and graduated students.
Yeah.
That was something that I put together at my program was,
and they
I was
often
so proud of my program that I actually wanted to highlight just how high the satisfaction was with our program, that I actually would ask students upon graduation, would it be okay if prospective students reached out to you to ask you your experience? And I didn't corral that conversation. I just said, here's a list of 20 graduates who have agreed to allow you to email them, and feel free to contact them.
And now there's
and
social media groups, like Facebook will have alumni groups, Instagram will have, you can follow the hashtag LinkedIn has alumni groups.
Okay.
So there's that aspect. I would also you can also look up dissertations and see if you like what people are writing about or thinking about.
I just think it'd be really hard because you don't even know what you would want, like what sort of things that you'll be attracted, like in terms of theory, for example. You don't know what you're going to like until you learn it sufficiently.
But if you know that you need to be in a school that's still addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion, now in Florida, it's illegal to talk about gay stuff in schools. So maybe...
Yeah, and there are some schools, even in Seattle, that are openly religious and are openly against gay people. So look into that, obviously.
Yes, yeah.
How does your program feel about LGBTQ people? But again, like if you contacted one of the local universities, religious universities that has problems in that area, I don't know if they would give you a straight answer. So I just kind of worry about that.
Yeah. So some of it is you have to trust your gut. Everyone complains about their graduate program too. So if you get into a graduate program and you're miserable and it feels like a horrible fit, like half the time that's people's experience.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're in the wrong place. It doesn't mean you'll have a bad career.
Right, exactly. Well, that is it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because
we care about you.